everybody, I'm Bill Sanders, and this is WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection. Today, what I want to do is that I want to take a look at some high horology watches that have been overlooked. Okay, they've been overlooked in the most important way for collectors, and that is that they have all of the features of high horology, but not the high price. And so we're going to go into the coal mine and try to find some diamonds. This isn't the first time, but it's always an interesting prospect. Before we get started, though, we're going to take a look at the watch of the week. And the watch of the week this week is owned by Brian De Benedictis, and it's one of the all-time favorites of the Zenith line, the El Primero Chronomaster. And it's a chronograph with three different subdials. And one of the things, I know some people don't like it, but I do, it has the date at about the 4 o'clock. So some people say, oh, they can't stand that. But in order to have everything you have the count, the day of the week, the month, and then the actual date down around 4 o'clock. Okay, so this is it's an automatic. It's in beautiful shape. It's a gorgeous watch. Here's the real thing: the Zenith El Primero Chronomaster. Great watch, and one if you're interested in watch collection. This is one of the things I like about having this. Zeniths tend to be extremely well priced, and so yet they have the same. They're on the same level as you have your Rolexes and your very best Omegas and Tag Heuers. So it's a top-notch watch. Okay. All right. Well, let's get started. This is what the first watch we're going to look at. And the reason I wanted to look at it, or the first watch brand, is Armstrong. So this year, I think it was 2016, Armstrong came out with something called the Mirrored Force Resonance. And having a FP Journe resonance, I know that there aren't very many watch companies that make them. And Armstrong has always done very creative things. The movement in that is, you can see it here, is that you have two independently symmetrically mirrored regulators, and it works the same way, same type of resonance. It's different, but it's the same type of resonance in the FP Journe that we looked at on another video. And so it's sort of a cool watch. Now, what I wanted to look at was, well, where's something that we mere mortals can afford? Okay. And so what I did is that I went and I took a look at sort of the lowest price watch that Armstrong made. It's called the Manual Water. They have water and sky and fire. That's sort of their thing. And brand new, the suggested retail price is $97.96. Okay, it's a cool looking watch. It's got the subdial with the seconds, and it's just generally a cool looking watch. Now, so I went looking around to see what a used one would cost, and I found one that is the Manual Water 2016. Now, this is 2016 watch, and it was 66% of the new price. All right, now this is something else that I wanted to talk about. A lot of times collectors say, well, look, I'm going to get a watch that has a good resale value. And right off the top of my head, I can tell you which ones have a good resale value. Patek Philippe and Rolex. Those have the very best. They have had them for a long time. In fact, I was wearing my Patek Philippe today. I'll get back to it later. I had another purpose for it. Okay, now one way of looking at it is in looking at the data. A Rolex, you buy a Rolex, and you're going to lose about 25% of its value, which is considered good. I didn't do the same kind of data analysis for Patek, but on a Rolex, it's about 25%. Okay, that's better than some other ones. Now, another way to view this is you want to buy a watch that drops like a lead balloon. The reason for that is that once it drops, how much more can it drop? So that's what I want is sort of the philosophy that I'm looking at today. We're going to start off buying pre-owned watches that have a big drop in it, even though the value of the watch as a horological instrument is pretty good. So let's take a look at these guys. Now, this one, the Armstrong manual water 2016, the from over $9,000 is down to $66.26, 66% of the new price. Now this is an asking price, which means you can knock off some of that too and probably do a lot better. So, but still, I mean that's more than 25%. So you're losing about 34% off of the new price instead of 24. So that means that the person who goes in second is going to get a pretty good deal. Okay. All right. So this is sort of the attitude that I had, and here's an Armstrong in good condition. I think it was condition 1 for $66.26, and I think it's I think it's a cool watch, and it has very close to the kind of watchmaking process that your top independents have. Not quite the same, but very close to it. And so what you're able to get is a very, very good watch for much less than others of a similar quality. Okay, so that's Armstrong. That's the first company I wanted to look at. Now, the second one is Blancpain, and Blancpain is an interesting one. If you go and you take a look at Blancpain, one of the first things you're going to find is that a lot of the used watches have a very, especially by today's standards, a fairly small diameter on the dial. Now, this one is 32.5, so you can get an idea of what some of the smaller ones look like. And they seem to run between about 34 and 36 on the Blancpain. But in looking at more of them, they do have, some of the newer ones have a 40 millimeter case. But anyway, that was how come I had my Patek on to say, well, this is what they look like. And with a dress, and this is very much of a dressy dress watch, they look great. They work fine. Okay, so let's take a look at a Blancpain. And back in 2004, a Blancpain called the Villeret Ultra Slim, or Extra Plat, won the Grand Prix prize for, at the time, they used to have one for the ultra thin or the ultra slim, whatever they call it, but it's referred to as Extra Plat for the thin ones. $8,200 new, okay, and that's in steel. Now I found one at Chrono 24, and this is the unnegotiated price in condition 1, and it looks at 2 for $29.75. Now this one is a little different than the one on the left. One on the left has a little date window, a very small one, and it also has a second hand. The one on the right, the one for $29.75, has neither of those, but it has all of the other features. In other words, they left out the modules that turn the second hand And of course, they left out the little disc that they have the dates on. But good looking watch, $29.75. This is the kind of watch. It's steel, but it has that same Calatrava patrimony kind of look. This is a Calatrava, and it's just, it's a nice thin watch, and it's a great dress watch. And I think that particular model, especially as done in stainless steel, is a great watch just for a daily work watch. Blancpain has got a very good name. Now, the thing about Blancpain is that people will say, oh, it's owned by Swatch, so it must have an ETA movement. Not the case. It was Frederic Piguet, used to be an independent movement maker, and I think Frederic Piguet bought Blancpain, and so Blancpain and Frederic Piguet sort of became one, and then it was bought by Swatch, and somehow Frederic Piguet disappeared, but became known as the in-house movement for Blancpain. Blancpain is considered a high horology watchmaker, and Frederic Piguet is like a seriously good movement, and that's no matter what they call it, that's pretty much what it is. They're not shoving ETAs in those things, and it's one of those ones that doesn't keep their value as well as some of the others. By the way, one of the things that I was looking at some vintage watches. I was going to give some examples of some vintage of these. So many of the vintage watches have messed up looking dials. That is one of the things that is rough on vintage. This one's from 1968, and I lucked out. I got almost, in fact, I think it's about as perfect as a dial can get. One of the things about certain types of watches, like Patek Philippe's, people take really good care of them. Some of these other watches, not so much so. So, the deal with vintage watches is keep an eye out for, if you find one with a good dial, hey, you can get some fantastic deals on those. But man, I tell you, there are more yucked up looking dials, and you don't want some kind of Franken-watch made up of a bunch of different dials. Okay. All right. So anyway, Blancpain is another one where I think you can get some good buys for a high horology watch. All right. Now this next one, man, I love. I always have. Parma Gianni Fluorere. The one that I like is called the Colpa Grande. And by the way, Parma Gianni has never entered a watch in the Grand Prix de Horologie. Well, neither is Rolex for that matter. And I got a feeling if Parma Gianni, and I think also Rolex, if they did, they'd probably win something. But Parma Gianni is one of those companies that doesn't have to prove anything. That's not because everyone thinks, oh, they're the greatest watches in the world, but rather because they're owned by this family that is as rich as God, so they don't have to worry about it. I think, some of these smaller companies that are struggling, like Harboring too, they really, had to get recognized, they had to win, and they did. Parma Gianni make these really good watches. People, all of the stuff is in-house. All of their movements are. They have a master watchmaker, if not a grandmaster watchmaker, making these watches, or at least designing the movements in them. And they have some really good deals. This particular one is condition 1. It's 3601. That's, for a watch of that caliber, it's a heck of a good price. Another one, this one was brand new. I couldn't believe it. They had, this was, probably would be condition 0. And it's another version of the Colpa Grande. It's a neat Tourneau shaped watch. And if you're looking to move up in your watch collection from sort of the level where you find Zenith and Omega and Rolex and so forth, and you want to get up into the ones who are doing more with high horology, Parma Gianni might be a very good way to go. It's a it's an excellent watch with nothing to prove, and so it doesn't try it. Okay, so that's it's in the same boat with Rolex, except Rolex is recognized by so many that it maintains a very high resale value. These guys don't have a very high resale value, so if you get in after one's sold, now this one is pretty good deal right out of the chute. Okay, um, now this last one that I want to look at is Ulot Nardin. I've been very high on Ulot Nardin, but one of the problems is this. In 2012, only about 25% of the movements at Ulot Nardin were in-house. They used a lot of ETAs, like this one right here uses an ETA 2892. Got no problem with ETAs, but I like ETAs at ETA prices, like my Raymond Weil that I got brand new for $300. Yeah, okay, it's got an ETA in it. Fine, I didn't pay that much. I didn't pay high horology prices for it, and I don't think anybody should. If they're, it's sort of like a sore point. Hey, you want to get a cheap one? I can tell you where to go to get a cheap ETA movement, and without costing you as much as some of these other ones. Now, the San Marco style, I really like. I mean, I like the looks of this watch, but I wouldn't get it. I mean, 1867 for an ETA isn't terrible, and I like the looks of this watch. But this is what I want to do is talk about Ulot Nardin in terms of what is coming. In 2012, they came out with their truly first in-house, totally in-house. I mean, from not counting vintage. But they came out with one called the UN 118, which is their chronometer, and then an automatic chronograph called the UN 150. So they do now have their own in-house, totally in-house movement with their in-house base, and so you'll see a lot of newer ones coming out of Ulot Nardin with the base of not instead of having an ETA base, they'll have a Ulot Nardin base. Now, here's one. This is their UN 153, and I got a kick out of it. If you, I don't know if you can see it there or not, but it says Ulot Nardin certified. The Geneva seal was a big deal. Patek Philippe used to have Geneva seals and that would say basically it was excellent watch. Vacheron Constantin and a couple others do. They have to be made in Geneva, so it wasn't for everyone. Of course, Pijorn didn't deign to have anybody certify his watches, including COSC. He figured they were certifiable, but he didn't want to. He could care less. Well, what Ulot Nardin did, they did what Patek Philippe did. They have their own certification. It says Ulot Nardin certified. I think Fleurier has their own kind of certification, and maybe Ulot Nardin did the same thing Patek Philippe did. Doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's sort of like to stamp yourself as with a seal of approval, but that's a gorgeous. This is their in-house, and they really made a beautiful movements that they have. So what I'm saying, take a look at Ulot Nardin's, the ones from 2012 on, and even those since 2012, they still have some ETAs in there. But take a look, and if you do get, or if you're considering a Ulot Nardin, do your homework and find out what kind of movement that they have. Okay, well, that's about it for today. To me, it's very important not to get stuck on any one kind of watch that Well, everyone knows that this is really good. Vacheron Constantin, I love them, and I have three of them. But I had, it's better for me to broaden myself, to go somewhere else, and that's where you find not only the most interesting watches in terms of movements and so forth. One of the things that Ulot Nardin has that I'd like to get someday is a freak. And the freak, they call it the freak because instead of having the crown do the winding, it's the entire bezel. You wind the bezel, and they call it the freak, and I love that. I mean, Ulot Nardin has all of these innovations. They have this wonderful history, but they've been using, um, I don't know, they according to them, they just get the Bosch from ETA and do the rest themselves. Well, okay, it's still an ETA movement, so let's hope that they move forward with this, and because they have some of these great new movements that they put in there since 2012, and if they don't hold their value, they can be a really excellent buy. Okay, let me know what you think, and also too, let me know if there's some high horology, there's some watch company that I've overlooked. You say, hey, listen, you really should pay attention to these guys because they're as high horology as a Patek Philippe, but they don't cost anywhere near as much. Let me know if you know of some like that and what you think. Your comments are important, and they make a discussion worthwhile. Okay. And if you want, this is an invitation to subscribe if you'd like to. Okay, this has been Bill Sanders and WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection. Until Sunday, I'll see you on Sunday.